Good morning, everyone. November 25th, 2018. 10 Reasons Mises Institute, Anthony Mueller. When politicians and bureaucrats fail to deliver right people or get the right people to run the government instead. 10 reasons. And maybe we can add more reasons to this list. Knowledge. Number 1. Government policies suffer from the pretense of knowledge. In order to perform a successful market intervention, politicians need to know more than they can. Market knowledge is not centralized, systemic, or systematic, organized, and general, but dispersed, heterogeneous, specific, and individual. Different from a market economy where there are many operators and a constant process of trial and error. The correction of government errors is limited because the government is a monopoly. For the politician to admit an error is often worse than sticking with a wrong decision, even against their own insight. Look at the Obamacare as an example of that. I do believe Donald Trump said he would be doing away with Obamacare, and this has not happened. And it's the wrong decision, and that goes against Trump's very own insight, right? You remember all the things he said about Obamacare. Number 2, information asymmetries. While there are also information asymmetries in the market, for example, between the insurer and the insured, or between the seller of a used car and its buyer, the information asymmetry is more profound in the public sector than in the private economy. While there are, for example, several insurance companies and many car dealers, there is only one government. The politicians, as the representatives of the state, have no skin in the game. And that's a problem. Perhaps if they had more skin in the game, they wouldn't run amok as they do. And because they are not stakeholders, they will not spend much efforts to investigate and avoid information asymmetries. On the contrary, politicians are typically eager to provide funds not to those who need them most, but to those who are most relevant in the political power game. And we know this goes on. Look at Israel, Saudi Arabia, look at AIPAC, the Israeli lobby here in the United States. They get the funds. The people are basically told to fuck off. Number 3, crowding out of the private sector. Government intervention does not eliminate what seem market... They forgot a word here. Government interventions do not eliminate what seems to be market deficiency, but creates them by crowding out the private supply. If there were not a public dominance in the areas of schooling and social assistance, private supply and private charity would fill the gap, as was the case before government usurped these activities. And a lot of people like to believe that, without government, without welfare, all that stuff, individuals would starve to death if they were in need, and blah, blah, blah. But this isn't the case. The private sector would fill that gap, as they said. Number 4, time lags. Government policies suffer from extended lags between diagnosis and effect. Yeah, they do. I mean, look at how long the war on drugs has been going on, and it's only gotten worse, right? The addiction. Now, I'm not against people using mind-altering substances. What I'm saying here is, if it weren't for government intervention, people wouldn't be using these things nearly as much as they do now. Which, you know, suicide rate is up over 30% since 2000. I would say that the government intervention in our lives, along with the uptick, or the government intervention in our lives, is responsible for the increased suicide rate and the increase in drug use. And heavy drug use is what I'm talking about. Things like heroin, methamphetamines, these things. And again, I'm not any person that will tell a person on heroin not to do it. That's their business. Or a person on meth, that's their business, not mine. Now, if I catch them abusing a child, then it becomes my business. I know somebody here. Of course, I don't talk to them for the reasons I'm about to tell you, but I went over to their place a couple times, and it was so fucking gross, man. So fucking gross. And their little one, about 2 years old, running around in fucking nasty, shitty diaper, comes to the door when I knock on it. And he opens the door. Must not have been shut all the way, but he opens the door, and there he is. He's got these fucking shit-filled diaper on, and the diaper's dirty inside and out. And the kid don't have a shirt on. He don't have nothing on. He's neglected because his parents are fucking too wrapped up in their own addictions to take care of them. These are the kind of people that I'm talking about. Now, if you can manage your life and still occasionally alter your mind, that's not a problem. But when your kid's running around like that and opening the door for people, then on top of that falling really hard to the cement because he trips, I'd say there's probably time for the rest of the family to intervene, but that's just me. Anyway, okay, so I was on number 4, first sentence. Government policies suffer from extended lags between diagnosis and effect. The governmental process is concerned with power and has its antennas, or antenna captures those signals that are relevant for the power game. Only when an issue is sufficiently politicized will it find the attention of the government. After the lag, until an issue finds attention and gets diagnosed, another lag emerges until the authorities have found the consensus on how to tackle the political problem. And everything turns into a political problem, doesn't it? Drugs turned into a political problem when they're more of a health care problem. Guns. Everything turns into a political problem because everyone expects a moron politician to fix it, and they can't. After the lag, until an issue finds attention, data, and gets diagnosed, another lag emerges until the authorities have found a consensus on how to tackle the political problem. From there, it takes a further time span until the appropriate political means have found the necessary political support. After the measures get implemented, a further time elapses until they show their effect. The lapse of time between the articulation of a problem and the effect is so long that the nature of the problem and its contexts have changed, and fundamentally a lot of the time. That's why one of the reasons why government can't fix anything, because by the time they get to fixing it, the context and the problem have changed to such a degree that their solution is now obsolete. Number 5, seeking or rent seeking and rent creation. Government intervention attracts rent seekers. Rent seeking is the endeavor of gaining privileges through government policies. In a voter democracy, there is a constant pressure to add new rents to the existing rents in order to gain support and votes. You know, we see this going on in the LGBTQ community, the black community, the Latino community, the only community that's not, really doesn't seek out this rent as they call it, for the most part, are whites. And you get the idiot liberals, but overall, whites don't do this. Overall. I'm not saying there's not exceptions to the rule. I'm just saying overall. That was number 5. Number 6, log rolling and vote trading. The public choice concept of log rolling denotes the exchange of favors among the political factions in order to get one's favored project through by supporting the projects of the other group. And this goes on a lot. You know, you vote for this gun control measure, we'll vote for money or to allocate money for projects X, Y, or Z. All you got to do is vote for this bill. Through the quid pro quo of the political process, the lawmakers support pieces of legislation of other factions in exchange for obtaining the political support of their own projects. And this is why I tell you almost every video that the right is just as guilty as the left for all the ugliness that this country has turned into. They've had to cooperate with each other in order for it to come to where it is now. If one side would have held its ground, said no, we're not voting for this shit, things would be a lot different than they are now. But because of this quid pro quo, they vote for project or legislation for the other team. in order to get their vote for their own legislation. Number 7, the common good. Holy fucking shit, man. The so-called common good is not a well-defined concept. Similar terms such as that of the public good, which is defined by non-exclusionary or non-rivalry, misses the point because it is not the good that is common or public, but its provision when this is deemed more efficient by collective than individual efforts. However, this is the case within all goods. The market in itself is a system of providing private goods through cooperative efforts. The market economy is a collective provider of goods as it combines competition with cooperation. Any of the so-called public goods which the government supplies, the private sector can also deliver, and cheaper and better as well. In contrast to the state, the cooperation in a market economy includes competition, and thus not only economic efficiency, but also the incentive to innovate. Yeah, if there is a competition for government, for policing, for all that shit, for the courts, there would be a lot more incentive to be innovative and to come up with new solutions. But since the government has a monopoly on these things, they remain dead horses. Number 8, regulatory capture. The term regulatory capture denotes a government failure where the regulatory agency does not pursue the original intent of promoting the public interest, but fails or falls victim to the special interests of those groups, which the agency was set up to regulate. Can you say FDA, the DEA? Oh, I'm sure there's more. The capture of the regulatory body by the private interest means that the agency turns into an instrument to advance the special interests of the group that was targeted for regulation. Number 9, short-sightedness. And most of the citizenry of this country, anyway, suffers from this condition. The political time horizon is the next election. In the endeavor that the benefits of political action come quickly to their specific clienteles, the politician will favor short-term projects over the long-term, even if the former bring only temporary benefits and cost more in the long run than an alternative project where the costs come earlier and the benefits later. Look at the nuclear power plants. There's technology that's been around for a long time now, and it's much safer and much more efficient than nuclear power plants. And as a result, I said and as a result, but the lobby for nuclear energy, those who profit from nuclear power plants, they kind of get favored treatment by those who are supposed to be regulating them. Look at all the leaky power plants here. Those things are not supposed to be leaking, but they get a free pass to continue operating, right? Even though the plants are leaking, even though they're only supposed to be used for 50 years. They'll get a pass. They keep getting extensions on the time of operation. And 95% of them are leaking some kind of radioactive material into the atmosphere. And they're worried about carbon. And that's something we're all made of, by the way. Carbon. Okay. And of course, this is one of those things where delayed gratification would probably be a good idea. Me delaying gratification with a YouTube channel, it was a good idea the first year, but after that it was just me making videos for the sake of making videos about this kind of information. And so be careful what you decide to take delayed gratification on. And of course, number 10 is rational ignorance. It is rational for the individual voter in a mass democracy to remain ignorant about the political issues because the value of the individual's vote is so small that it makes not much difference for the outcome. The rational voter will vote for those candidates who promise the most benefits. Given the small weight of an individual vote in a mass democracy, the rational voter will not spend much time and effort to investigate whether these promises are realistic or in a collision with his or her other desires. Thus, the political campaigns do not have information and enlightenment as the objective, but disinformation and confusion. What counts in the end is to get the votes, not the solidarity, or I'm sorry, the solidity of the program is important, but the enthusiasm a candidate can create within his supporters. And we saw this with, Donald Trump. As a consequence, election campaigns incite hatred, polarization, and the lust for revenge. So, you got to remember, governments have been around for thousands of years, tens of thousands of years, and very, very few, a very minute amount, have ever done what was good for its people. They've always done what was good for those with the most money and those with the most power. That's the way it's always been, and as long as governments continue to exist, that's the way it will always be. This is why I tell you, kill the state before the state kills you.